was able to turn yours off.
Is it on that front? Okay. One of the coolest things you got to do, and what we talked about earlier, was in 1988, in August, you got to be the starting pitcher of the first night in Wrigley Field with the Reds.
Well, we thought it was going to be the first night.
Yeah.
As you all remember, opening night, 8/8/88, the night that the lights went on at Wrigley Field, we got rained out in the bottom of the fourth inning. But for a lot of us, it truly was. It was opening night. As we talked about earlier, I was blessed to start 11 opening days. But there's always going to be another opening day. We didn't think there would ever be another opening night. And it was special. I mean, it was huge. President Reagan was supposed to flip the switch, but the Secret Service said that they couldn't protect him. There were too many people in the neighborhood. And I got to tell you, in a big way, what's going to happen here on Thursday reminds me of what that night was like. The excitement that's in that clubhouse over there, the excitement that is in this city, the facility. I looked at the roster. Manager Rick Renteria's got Samardzija starting. He's got all the big boys in the bullpen. I mean, this is kind of like a must-win for the Chicago Cubs, and it's against your Diamondbacks, so it should be a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. Let me get a few of my notes here first. Okay, big guy. Let's go back a little bit. In 1974, you came to Arizona. Were you going to be playing? Were you going to be the next tight end for the Sun Devils? How was that going to go? How did that not go that way?
I thought it was going to be that way. I actually signed a letter of intent to play football at ASU. That was my plan. That was my dream. That was the sport that I thought I was destined to pursue. And then the Dodgers came along and drafted me. I got drafted in the first round. And at the end of rookie ball that year, we had instructional league. And you all were talking about old Rendezvous Park. I got to admit, when I first got to that ballpark, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then years later, I get traded to the Cubs. We come over here, and I see that Rendezvous Park has been torn down, and y'all built Hohokam. I mean, I didn't think you got any better than that. Then you tore Hohokam down, and you built a better one. And then to walk in here and take a look at this, I'm honestly a little bit pissed off. And a little bit jealous, particularly when, and I hope you guys do, as they talked about, as Jed was saying, you need to go tour this complex. People in this day and age, we always talk about how the players are better. And there's no question about that. And there's a couple of reasons for that. They're not born better. It's just that because of the World Baseball Classic, the talent pool has gotten bigger. Roland and the Diamondbacks, of course, are going over to Australia with the Dodgers. The World Baseball Classic has opened the game up to so many people. But another reason that the players today are better is because if you go over there and take a look at the weight room, at the facility and the opportunities that they have, there's not a muscle in your body that they can't improve. And I go back to 1980. Well, maybe that one. You got to work from the neck up every now and then. But I go back to 1988. I'll never forget. We didn't have a weight room, but in this one corner, a guy had brought in a bench press, and a kid named Sean Bosky was like benching 200 pounds or something. And our manager Don Zimmer walked by, and he goes, "What the hell is this?" He said, "I don't need any football players. I don't need a linebacker. I need baseball players." They sent me down to the minor leagues that day. I mean, that's the way we thought about weight training back in the late 80s. Everything has changed, and because of it, the game's better.
Do you think of yourself and the players you played with and how that would have made a difference if you had these kind of facilities?
I don't think there's any question about it.
As great as they were, would have been even, I mean, there were some great players that you played with and you played against.
Fergie and I, as he talked to the organization this morning, we were looking at it, and it's like, guys, you're absolutely making a huge mistake if you don't take advantage of this. The opportunity is there for you to succeed like it's never been before.
That's awesome. Now, for you, what's the difference between, say, a rookie and the way when you first come into spring training camp in a place like this, which you're in, and after you've been playing for 5 years, 10 years? What's the real difference?
You know, you don't know what's going to happen to begin with. I mean, you have these plans, you hope to make the ball club. As a veteran, when you come in, you know that you're on the team. And you know what you have to do to get to that opening day. So it's not that you do any less. As you get older, of course, you've got to do a lot more. But I think the big thing now that I'm on the other side, and I apologize for the uniform, I just came off the field as one of the guest instructors, but you have to understand that these young kids, there's a lot of adrenaline. There's a lot of things going on that they just can't slow down. And I go back, I was an 18-year-old kid in Vero Beach with the Dodgers, spring training, my very first day. What we're doing is we're covering first base, we're hitting ground balls. And all of a sudden, I'm behind this line, and I look up, and I see Don Sutton, Tommy John, Andy. I see all these Hall of Famers, and I'm going, what in the world am I doing here? And all of a sudden, I looked up, they handed me a baseball, and I throw it to Steve Yeager. And Tommy Lasorda was a coach. He hit a ground ball to first base. Steve Garvey's over at first base. I'm supposed to run over there, right? About halfway there, I catch a cleat, and I do a header down the ground. I tear both of my arms up. I never even got to first base. I was in the trainer's room getting sewed up. So you know, I've been that kid. I know how nervous you can possibly be, and you just have to understand that with some of the younger players. They'll finally settle that.
Is the fan experience any different? You go into a bunch of different major league ballparks, maybe a hostile place against the opposing field. I'm sure people were really nice to you in Pittsburgh. Maybe
I was going to say the Pittsburgh's the worst place of all. You know,
but is the fan experience in the Cactus League time different from when you're during the regular season? Because people know the games don't really count, but they're still here. To me, I love being a fan of the Cactus League game. In some ways, even more than I like going to the major league.
It seems like they count. You're exactly right. I mean, the slate's erased when spring training's over with, but I don't remember the 7 years that I was here in Mesa, I don't remember ever seeing an empty seat. And I know that as a player, when you walk out on the field and the ballpark's packed, it's important to somebody. It means something, and because of that self-motivating factor that you might have to come up with, it doesn't exist. I also think back to the World Baseball Classic, the first one in 2006. I'm out to dinner with some of the guys, Derek Jeter and Chipper Jones, and they're going, have you been training here all this time? Have you been in Arizona? Yeah. They said, this is unbelievable. I mean, they were actually jealous of the fact that, first of all, the facilities. He said, we don't have anything like that in Florida. Second of all, the travel. He said, you guys just get in your car, an hour's the furthest place away. Back in the day with the Dodgers, we had to get on a plane to fly from Vero Beach to Miami. There was a lot of real inconveniences that you guys out here have taken care of.
Is it true at the same time that as a veteran, you're kind of, things are going to go pretty well for you. You're having fun out here. It's a lovely part of the country. It's a nice time of year. Is there truth to the story about the Mark Harmon bachelor party that you were involved in? That happened out here? Mark Harmon, the actor for NCIS?
How many people know who Mark Harmon is, right? You guys got him? We've been great friends for a long time. He came to a lot of the spring trainings when we were here. But back when People magazine selected him as the sexiest man of the year.
Are you second?
I was not second. He was going to marry Pam Dauber, remember Morgan Mindy, all that. And so we had the same age, and he was the best man in the wedding, so he's got to throw a bachelor party for Harmon. Well, Harmon's not a nightclub guy kind of guy. He's an athletic guy. He was quarterback at UCLA. So we had an off day in spring training, as everybody does. So I said, bring him down. I said, I'll throw a little, Olympic event with him. I rented Malibu Grand Prix. We were going to race cars. Mine Combiners used to have a volleyball sand deal we were going to play. But the first thing I did, I had them all pull up to Hoboken. And they pull up in their limos, and it's Harmon, Les Moonves, the president of CBS, Frank Marshall, all these, everybody's somebody, right? They get out, I give them Cub t-shirts, hats, wristbands. I send them to center field. I got Sandberg, Jody Davis, Keith Nolan there. We're going to have a game. So as we're running out, my favorite part is that Harmon looks to our agent, Barry, and he goes, this is awesome. He goes, what a great guy Rick is. Well, as you guys know, I get them all out to center field right together. I have the ground crew turn on the sprinkler system. And if you turn it on full blast, I mean, you guys know, it hits you like a BB gun, right? They're laid out on the ground, all they can do is crawl off, and of course, I have that video. So.
Now, you've been through all the phases of the game. You've been a player, you've done broadcasting, you've done coaching. How do they differ? How are they the same? What have you brought to, what is it that you think you bring to young kids coming up who, in some ways, probably a lot of them, weren't even born when you were pitching?
About that. To answer the first part of the question, there's nothing that will ever in my life replace playing. You know, you never, Fergie and I were talking about that, even now, I'm a 57-year-old cancer-surviving grandpa. And I still, when I see that mound out there, I still feel like I still want to go out there and try to get it done. What happens is you lose your ability to prepare to play. The desire to play is always going to be there. That ability to prepare, and sometimes the desire to prepare is what goes. I talk to a lot of people. I talked to Jerry Jeter about that. When do you know it's time? You know, it's time when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and you can't get up and go out and run that 5 or 6 miles. You start having problems with that, you realize that it's almost over.
Well, it's awesome, the notion that you had that great experience it's really cool. It's the idea that if you had that, you know, you pitched to some great people in your day. Did you ever think about if you could pitch to any group of people, would you have chosen, if you could pick an era to pitch in, would you pick one in the past? Would you pick today? Would you pick when you pitched?
I always enjoyed pitching against the Pirates. I don't know what it was about that, just those obnoxious fans they had. I love going out there and just kind of hitting the mute button for all of that.
And those were some awesome teams in those days. They were great players. Is there a guy you ever say to yourself, I wish I could see, among you, you're a pitcher, you know what it means to be a pitcher. Who would be on your pitching Mount Rushmore for baseball?
I have this job with ESPN, some of you might know, and I do the Baseball Tonight show. And over the last 4 years, I've said that if I could start an organization, if there was one player, pitcher, anything in all of baseball that I could have to do that with, it would be Clayton Kershaw. I don't know how many of you people know some of the things that he does off the field, the trips to Africa, the orphanage that he's building, the hospitals. And he was doing all these things long before he just signed that last contract. I have been blessed to achieve some accomplishments in baseball, and again, I applaud the people that were put into the first Hall of Fame today. But you mentioned earlier the Roberto Clemente Award means more to me than anything in the world. Ned Colletti, the general manager of the Dodgers now, is the PR director here. He, along with Dwight Patterson, we used to go visit the Children's Hospital all the time. We used to go just anywhere they needed us. We were going to be there. And I'll never forget a story. Before I got traded to the Cubs, I was with Cleveland, and I was at a picnic for the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And we were having a great time. And all of a sudden, I started talking to some of the board of directors. And as you guys know, trying to raise funds, they needed $5,000 to keep the thing going. And I didn't have the money. I wasn't making any money. And I literally remember sitting down there crying with them, and truthfully, it went away. They never had it again after that. But I'll never forget the guy who started it, and it's kind of like his child saying, Rick, to these kids, 5 minutes of your time means more than $5,000 of your dollars ever will. And I mean, to me, that's the thing, that pass it on down, leave the game better than you know what you entered it with. That's what you guys have done here. I mean, this sport, these players are going to be better because of all of your time, effort, and of course money.
Baseball, in that sense, really is it's a conversation over time, over generations. That's what we were talking earlier about how baseball is how you talk to your father of a certain generation when you were that kind of kid and that kind of stuff. Now, among your many accomplishments, I'm wondering if just for bragging rights, which one you used more? Was it a home run you hit in an NLCS game, or was it the fact that you actually stole home
Was there a heart attack involved? Did the pitcher die? Did the ball flies up? I mean, how did that occur?
It happened so quick. I mean, it was, y'all don't believe that, do you? As you look at me, that I'm the last pitcher to have stolen home, right? I mean, it happened. I mean, obviously there was a little something to it. I'm at third base. There's a guy on first base. He takes off to steal. The pitcher did the first move, which obviously you can't do anymore. Well, as he throws it to first base, the guy that I work with at ESPN now, John Truck, was the first baseman. Well, he's running him down. He's going to be out, right? So I just decide I'll take off. They tag me. Truck turns and he throws the baseball up into the stands. And I would have been out by 40 feet, but I get credit for stealing home.
It's still in the record.
My first stolen base was even bigger than that, though. We were talking about Steve Stone, Roland. You mentioned his name earlier. Bill Murray comes to Chicago back when Harry Carey had a stroke, and he's one of the celebrity announcers. So he's broadcasting the game. We're all excited to meet him and everything. And during the third inning, I get a base hit. Jody Davis scores. He's really out. Eric Gregg, the home plate umpire, called him safe. Floyd Yeomans, the pitcher, goes crazy. They kick him out. So I'm hanging out at first base while they bring in Andy McGaffigan from the bullpen. He gets all the time he needs to warm up, right? Well, Bill Murray now is stuck up in the booth with Stone trying to kill time until the pitcher's ready. So Murray looks out and he goes, Steve, I'll bet you a case of beer Sutcliffe steals second right here. And Steve Stone says, well, Bill, you know, Sutcliffe's not as young as he once was, hamstring problems, he's never had a stolen base, never attempted one, I'll take the bet. Well, everybody down the first base line, we knew Murray was going to be on the air. They all had TVs and radios. So they're all yelling at me, right? They're saying, hey, Bill Murray just bet a case of beer, right? Well, my thought is, I mean, if I steal second, I'm going to get to drink this case of beer with me, right? Well, guess who stole the first base right after that, right? And drank the case of beer with Bill.
That's fantastic. This has been just great for me, and I'm sure it's been really great for most of you. It reminds me there's a story, I hope it's true, I read it somewhere once, where the great Cincinnati Red, Cesar Geronimo, he was part of one of the big Red Machine players. I hated those guys more than I hated the Cubs actually in those days. But Cesar Geronimo, this outfielder for the Cincinnati Reds, he was strikeout victim number 3,000 for Bob Gibson. And then several years later, he became strikeout victim number 3,000 for Nolan Ryan. Right? And after the game, a reporter approached him and said, how does it feel to be the 3,000 strikeout victim for Bob Gibson and then be the 3,000 strikeout victim for Nolan Ryan? And Cesar Geronimo said, well, I guess I was just in the right place at the right time. That's what I feel like today. Thank you all for coming.
I'm going to close with one quick story about Cincinnati that you talked about. 1989, the boys of Zimmer, right? We had, like middle September, we're in first place, but we lost 3 games in a row. Everything that Don Zimmer did just didn't work out. So I've got a 5-1 lead as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning. And back in Cincinnati, at the Old River Front Stadium, the bullpen and the dugout were all together. So I'm sitting about halfway between the manager and the bullpen. Well, the last out's made at the top of the 9th. I'm getting ready to go out for the bottom of the 9th, 5-1 lead. Zimmer yells down to the bullpen and said, hey, Mitch Williams, Lancaster, right here, get up, get going right now. Fergie, I'm standing right there, right? I mean, I got this thing. Well, I kind of lose it a little bit. And I yelled at Williams and Lancaster, I said, sit down. I said, I'm telling you, sit down. And I tell Zimmer, you sit on your little fat rear end too. The last 3 days you screwed everything, I've lost it, right? I mean, you know, I wouldn't do this, but I did. So anyway, I get the first 2 guys out, right? So the third guy comes up, Paul O'Neill. I hang a slap. He hits a home run, okay? Well, in Cincinnati, when the home team hits a homer, fireworks go off. And I mean, they do a good job. Boom, boom, I mean, smoke's in here everywhere. No big deal. It's 5-2. Eric Davis comes up. First pitch to him, upper deck. I mean, the smoke hadn't come down from O'Neill's home, and here they go again. Boom, boom, I mean, everywhere. Off they go everywhere. So now we got problems. It's 5-3, the tie runs in the on-deck circle. We don't have anybody up in the bullpen, right? So Zimmer yells out to Joe Girardi, our catcher, he goes, hey, go talk to him. And Joe goes, I ain't going out there. I lost it, right? So he looked at Vance Law, the third baseman. Well, Vance is walking off. He wouldn't even look at him. So Zim knows if he comes out, we're going to fight, right? So he sends our pitching coach, Billy Connors, out. Old fat Billy comes waddling out there, right? And as he's coming out, I'm yelling at him, get back! I got it! What are you doing? Well, by the time Billy gets there, now he's mad. And he comes out there, all the infield's around, and he goes, I'm not out here to take you out. I have no doubt you're going to win this game. I'm here to give the fireworks guy time to reload.
Thanks so much. Thank you all for coming.